Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking this incredibly fascinating, science-backed journey straight into the bloodlines of the Punjabi people. We're literally unlocking 40,000 years of history that's been hiding right inside the human genome. It is an epic story of survival, massive migrations, and just a continuous blending of cultures that built one of the most vibrant populations on Earth. So let's jump right in.
So the very first thing we've got to address is a massive question. Are Punjabis a single, pure race? For centuries, there's been this cultural myth, a really widely accepted idea, that the people of the Punjab, the land of the five rivers, originated from one distinct, pure bloodline that just stayed put. But is that what the science actually says? Well, wait till you see what happens when researchers finally sequence the DNA. It completely changes how we view human history in this region.
Okay, let's dive into this. Modern DNA analysis absolutely shatters that myth of purity. Recent data from the 1000 Genomes Project gives us undeniable proof that Punjabis are actually this beautiful, complex mix of global ancestors. Far from being some isolated group, they represent one of the oldest continuously evolving populations in the entire world. Their genetic code is basically a biological map of 5 major ancient migrations that brought totally diverse groups of people together over tens of thousands of years. And to put that into perspective, we aren't just talking about a couple hundred years of history here. We're looking at a chronological roadmap spanning 40,000 years. From the Stone Age, right through the eras of ancient civilizations, all the way up to about 4,000 years ago. Century after century, these continuous waves of human movement literally layered on top of each other to build the modern Punjabi identity.
So, let's wind the clock all the way back to the beginning. 40,000 years ago, Punjab was definitely not the massive agricultural hub that it is today. It was wild, heavily forested, and totally uncultivated. And it was during this Stone Age era that the very first migration happened. Small bands of African hunter-gatherers crossed these unforgiving deserts and rivers to reach the region. We're talking about a tiny pioneer population here, maybe just 500 to 1,000 people. No farming, just surviving purely by hunting and foraging in the dense forests of ancient Punjab.
All right, fast forward to about 10,000 years ago, and we get our second massive genetic building block. This time, it was a huge migration of Iranian Neolithic farmers. Since agriculture first started in the Iranian region, when these folks migrated in massive numbers over to the lands of Punjab, Haryana, and Sindh, they brought the very first seeds and farming techniques with them. They laid the foundation for agriculture there. And today, an incredible 20 to 25% of modern Punjabi DNA comes directly from those Iranian Neolithic farmers.
Now this brilliantly illustrates what happens next. About 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, those original African hunter-gatherers and the Iranian farmers didn't just live next to each other, they merged. This genetic blending created a brand new population, forming the legendary Indus Valley civilization. The DNA of the Indus Valley people became roughly 70% Iranian Neolithic and 30% African hunter-gatherer. These were incredibly advanced folks, you guys. They built baked brick cities, domesticated animals, and had this widespread trade network.
Which leads us to a truly staggering realization. When scientists test the genetics of modern Punjabis today, they find that a massive 40 to 45% of their genetic code comes directly from those ancient Indus Valley innovators. I mean, just think about that. The blood of those advanced, brick-building, trading ancestors from cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro is still very much alive and flowing through the veins of the people living there right now.
But the story doesn't end there, not by a long shot. About 4,000 years ago, we see the arrival of the Aryans from Eastern Europe and Central Asia. These were warrior-like people, and they fundamentally changed the landscape. They brought horses for riding, introduced chariots, advanced cattle breeding, and importantly, they brought the foundational linguistic roots of Sanskrit. Genetically speaking, this arrival contributed another 10 to 20% to the modern Punjabi DNA pool.
After the Aryans, the layers just kept on building. The region basically became a massive crossroads for empires and trade routes. We see Middle Easterners, specifically Persian and Arab traders, adding a minor but really distinct percentage to the DNA. And later, the Mongols arrive. Now originally they came as invaders, right? But many of the soldiers and generals actually decided, hey, we're not leaving. They settled down, started families, and integrated into the local population, adding a final 2 to 4% layer to this whole genetic tapestry.
Now, what's really interesting here is a shocking anomaly hiding deep within the Punjabi genetic code. Scientists found this tiny, highly specific 2% haplogroup of Balkan and Greek origin. This is a massive revelation because this specific DNA is practically nowhere else in South Asia. So, where did it come from?
It was actually left behind by the armies of Alexander the Great. When his forces marched in, many of his soldiers stayed behind, established Greek Indian states, and left a permanent 2% genetic signature.
Moving on, let's talk about how this DNA actually affects daily life today. You ever wonder why milk is such a huge part of the diet in this region? Well, it all comes down to genetics. Punjabis have a massive 63% rate of lactase persistence. Basically, their metabolism can easily digest dairy well into adulthood, which, by the way, is definitely not common for every human population globally. It's a biological trait inherited straight from those cattle-herding Indus Valley ancestors from thousands of years ago.
The genetic data also uncovered an incredible, almost unbelievable global connection. Today, there are around 5 million Romani gypsies living thousands of miles away in Central Europe, places like Bulgaria, Hungary, Spain, and the UK. When scientists actually compared their DNA to modern Punjabis, it was an almost exact match. Even though they're separated by thousands of miles in totally different cultures today, their genetic code proves they came from the exact same regional roots before migrating out to Europe.
Now, this genetic data intersects with society in a really profound way. For centuries, there have been these rigid social myths claiming that high castes were purely foreign in origin, while lower castes were purely indigenous. But science entirely debunks this. The genetic evidence impartially proves that, regardless of caste, everyone shares the exact same complex mixture of indigenous and migratory DNA. The origins are completely unified.
And that scientific unity brings us to a deeply philosophical takeaway. In 1947, the partition created borders and led to tragic bloodshed based on religious differences. But whether we're looking at a Sikh in Amritsar, a Muslim in Lahore, or a Hindu in Ludhiana, sure, they might look a bit different based on cultural attire, and yes, borders might separate them. But science proves that genetically, their blood and DNA are completely identical. The underlying human code is absolutely one and the same.
So, as you can see, culture and language evolved right in parallel with this DNA. The linguistic journey started with those ancient Aryan Sanskrit roots. Then, between 1000 and 1500 AD, the distinct Punjabi language was officially born. Fast forward to the 16th century, and the Gurmukhi script was brilliantly created by the second Sikh guru, Guru Angad Dev Ji. And finally, as more traders and generals arrived, Urdu and Persian vocabulary organically mixed in. Just like their genes, the language itself is this beautiful, evolving blend of history.
Which brings us to a massive question for the future. We know there's been continuous human habitation in this region for over 10,000 years. That literally means there are still ancient graves buried deep beneath the earth, holding the remains of people from 10,000 or even 20,000 years ago. What kind of DNA secrets are still hiding down there, just waiting to be sequenced? Could future discoveries rewrite the history books all over again? I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments where in the world you're watching this explainer from, and let's see just how far this ancient genetic legacy has spread today. Thanks for hanging out with me on this incredible journey.